We've been waiting on pins and needles, and finally, a week after Cade Tyson's visit, we got word. He is a Tar Heel, in my opinion, North Carolina's starting small forward for 2024-25.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Monday, April 29th, 2024. That's the good thing about waiting so late to do a live show is that it's already after midnight. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Shade. You're joining us at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. Thanks for making us your first listen or watch. Special shout out to all you everydayers out there and everyone joining us from the Locked On Tar Heels Discord community. This episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. Look, I admit it, I have a competitive side, and that competitive side is a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store or Google Play. Folks, coming up on the show here today, we're going to talk about Cade Tyson committing to the Tar Heels. We're going to talk about what's still outstanding, what's going to happen with the rest of the remaining scholarships, and just unpack a little bit. Still no official word from Carolina or RJ Davis, so we'll get into that. But obviously, where we need to start is with the great news that came in on Sunday about Cade Tyson. And so let me just say a couple things right out of the gate. For those of you who are regular listeners to or watchers of the show, you know that I was gone this weekend. And so we said, of course, somebody's going to commit while Isaac's out of town. And so the running joke in the Locked On Tar Heels Discord is that could I go ahead and schedule another trip for Wednesday when Cliff Omoruyi is on his visit to North Carolina? So I'm ready to go. I'm booked. I'm going to be out of town. No. In all seriousness, I literally was boarding a plane as the Cade Tyson news broke. Just got home a little bit ago and I'm able to hop on and record. So I apologize to all of you because I love to be able to get on pretty immediately after news breaks and share it with everyone. So it's great to be doing this, even though it's literally after midnight Eastern time. So big thanks to all of you night owls like me who are staying up and diving in. All right, let's get into by the way, Cade Tyson really should have been more considerate of my schedule. No, I'm just kidding. It's great stuff there. Right out of the gate, we'll talk more about Cade Tyson because we've done so previously. You can go watch the whole episode and the whole specific clip I have of him that was about 8-9 minutes long, me breaking down why I like him and what he brings. So we're not going to rehash that much right now. I want to talk about what this means for North Carolina, and then we'll say some other things. To me, Cade Tyson is North Carolina's starting small forward for the upcoming season. And I know there are a lot of people who are nervous about that for a multitude of reasons. Number one, a transfer coming in and transferring up a level. There's been some previous not great experiences with that. And then also the possibility of the incoming freshman, Drake Powell, and Ian Jackson and what they bring to the table. Ian Jackson, not necessarily a small forward or not a small forward, but will have the ability to fill that role. So let me alleviate some things right out of the gate. Here's some of the things I've heard tossed around. People saying, you remember Justin Pierce, like that year of Justin Pierce and Christian Keeling? I'm nervous this guy is going to be Justin Pierce. And with all due respect to Justin Pierce, he's not. Cade Tyson, far and above. Or another thing, a more recent, well, that was Paxton Wojcik. He came in as a shooter, transferred up from the Ivy League level, and you saw what it was last year. Again, all due respect to Paxton Wojcik, that's not Cade Tyson. This is a different level that we're talking about here. And so, yes, he is transferring up. Yes, there are things he will have to get figured out, but it's a different ball game. And so let me just alleviate those fears right out of the gate. In terms of the freshmen, I've talked about it, but I'll say it this way. Ian Jackson, again, is more of a shooting guard than a small forward, although he will probably play some at the 3 and small ball type lineups this year. And I'm excited about that, by the way. And Drake Powell is more of a 3, a small forward, but getting this elite level shooting is something you have to have in college basketball, especially knowing like Elliot Cadeau is a capable 3-point shooter, but he's not elite at the level Cade Tyson is. And if you think about, again, we're waiting still on official RJ Davis news, which we'll talk about later in the show. But if you think about pairing RJ's 3-point capability with Cade Tyson's 3-point capability, starting your 2 and 3, assuming Carolina can get a capable power forward in terms of shooting, you're feeling really, really good about it. And so let me say it in this way, because I've talked about him. In fact, I titled the show when we talked about Cade Tyson, Carolina's Cormac Ryan replacement. And that's what Cade Tyson is, but he's bigger than Cormac Ryan by a couple inches. He has better shooting numbers than Cormac Ryan brought in consistently. And we'll look at those and talk about it. And I love, with Cormac, he just brought 1 year of eligibility. Now, I love that was a high-level graduate transfer situation. But with Cade Tyson, similar to Cam Johnson, he brings in 2 years of eligibility for North Carolina and is going to be able to, even if year one, like in this day and age, it's kind of like, hey, look, if you come here, show out and go off to the league after 1 year, congrats to you. You love it and you celebrate that. But if not, Carolina can get 2 years out of this guy. That's phenomenal. It's like the bonus of, like, for all you baseball people out there like me, when it's at the trade deadline and you're able to get a relief pitcher that's not just a hired gun for the rest of this season, or maybe a high-end starter that you're like, oh man, this is phenomenal, but they're controlled not just for the rest of this year, but next year as well. That's like icing on the cake. And that's what Cade Tyson brings, is all of these sorts of things. And it's funny, I know there was a lot of consternation because Cade Tyson's visit was last weekend, not this weekend. And there was a lot of thought that the commitment would be made public last Sunday, not this Sunday. So this whole week, there's been a little bit of like, right, amongst the fan base of like, is something going on here? There were rumors late last week of financial, like Cade Tyson's camp asking for more money than Carolina and others were wanting to give. And then thankfully on Sunday, the news broke. And it's funny that before the news broke, because keep in mind, the conversation had been Carolina kind of looking at these 3 different shooters, Cade Tyson, who was the one I wanted above the other 2. And I've been very vocal about that just because I think there are some things he brings that the other guys don't. I'll mention that in just a second. But it was funny because Andrei Stojakovic, Page's son, was one of the other guys, and he had Carolina, Kentucky, and Cal, not Coach Cal, but like California, the new ACC school, as his final 3. Stojakovic committed to Cal earlier in the weekend, and so that was a pretty clear sign as well of like, oh, this is looking good for the Tar Heels. Let's not worry about Cade Tyson. This is going to happen. So that was a big indicator to everyone concerned. I love that Cade Tyson is from North Carolina. I love that he's coming home and is going to be close to home. His brother, Hunter, played for Clemson. And so love that there's ACC experience already within the family. Now, when you look back at Tyson's numbers last year as a sophomore at Belmont, 16.2 points a game, 46.5% from 3. I mean, it's just insane. And it's not like that was on 1 or 2 attempts. 5.5 attempts a game, he was shooting that kind of percentage. I'm telling you, that kind of shooter does not come along every day of the week. And that is some of the greatest currency in all basketball. I don't care what level you're at. A guy that can make shots and do it consistently from outside is what you have to have. And that's why I look at this so much as like a more of a Cam Johnson type role than even like what Cormac brought, because he is a dynamic shooter. but it's not just shooting. He can do a lot of other things. We'll say that in a minute. So all of that 3-point shooting, 85.5% from the free throw line last year on 2.7 attempts a game. So you see, he's not just sitting out there, he's getting to the basket as well. And here's another critical thing that he does. Last year, 5.9 rebounds a game. Carolina needs that. It cannot just be whoever the starting center is. It cannot just be whoever the power forward is. I love this dude getting his nose in there, sticking his nose in and saying, hey, I'm going to help out and dig down. You know, Hubert Davis loves that wrinkle that he can bring. 1.6 assists a game and also 0.9 steals. And so you hear me saying, I love that Cade Tyson is not just a shooter. And that's why I project him into the starting lineup. That's one of the things that I didn't like as much about Kobe Brea, who's the Dayton transfer that was at UConn this weekend, that was scheduled to be at Duke early this week, canceled that. Now he's kind of talking to Kentucky as well. But with Brea, phenomenal three-point shooter. Hear me saying nothing ill about him. Was 100 for 200 out of 201 attempts from three last year. I mean, that's absolutely bonkers. But outside of that, he only attempted 45 two-pointers, Kobe Brea. Meanwhile, on the other hand, Cade Tyson last year attempted 185 two-pointers, made 96 of them. So you see, again, he's getting into the lane and not just shooting. Although he attempted 172 threes last year and made 80 of them. So there's so much that he brings to the table. And you think, oh, Isaac, I don't know. Is that just a fluke? Nah. Let me tell you what he did his freshman year. Very similar numbers. Again, above 40% from three, 41.7 on 3.8 attempts as a freshman. And again, I know it's Belmont. I hear that. But Missouri Valley Conference is good basketball. That's Drake last year. That's Indiana State. Great teams. And so him doing that both of these years, and let's go to the free throw line, where he shot even better percentage his freshman year, 85.9% on even more attempts per game, slightly, but still 2.8 attempts to 2.7 attempts. And also shot even better his freshman year from 2 on around the same, essentially the same amount of attempts per game, 53.6% his freshman year to 51.9% his sophomore year. I love that his rebounding went up from freshman to sophomore year. 4.6 to 5.9. I love that his assists went up 0.9 up to 1.6. Steals stayed right around 1 steal per game, and blocks stayed right around half a block per game. And so I'm telling you, over and over and over again, Cade Tyson brings a ton to this team. For me, he is Carolina's starting small forward next season. So just watch for that and see what happens. Now, what else does Carolina have that they still need to get figured out? Well, got to turn back now to the other positions of need, power forward and center, because Carolina is still in the market. Got a big visitor coming in this weekend, this week, quite literally a big visitor. We want to get into all that and talk about those guys, and we'll do so in just a second. Right after I tell you that this episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. All right, look, game off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go, because I know what you're saying. Look, Isaac, flag on the play. You've already been talking about Monopoly Go, but look, you guys, there's just so much stuff to talk about with this game that I want to keep doing it. In Monopoly Go, I know we've talked a lot about going against your friends, but you can team up with them for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get. Things like unique stickers that you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes. There's cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, and hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go, so get off the bench and go download it now for free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Okay, here's what we want to do next. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the Shady Scholarship chart, because you know you love this thing and you want to see it. So let's get that going right Now, if you're listening and not watching, you can pull this up as well and see it. It is on my Twitter feed, so make sure you find it there. And I need to remove my name from the bottom so you can see everything. All right. So for those of you watching, you can see it. For those of you listening, let me talk about what you're seeing. Reminder, each team gets 13 scholarships a year. Carolina, for this upcoming season stand, have 10 of those accounted for, and that means there are 3 available. Let me talk us through those 10 that are accounted for. 2 super seniors, RJ Davis, Jalen Withers. 3 now juniors, Seth Trimble, Jalen Washington, and joined by Cade Tyson. 2 sophomores, Elliot Cadeau, Zayden High, and then the 3 incoming freshmen, James Brown, Ian Jackson, and Drake Powell. And so that's where things stand for Carolina right now. Again, we got to wait to see. The transfer portal deadline is not till Wednesday night at midnight Eastern. And so we'll see what happens with that. But where we go now is saying, all right, if I had to construct a starting lineup right now, I would have Elliot Cadeau and RJ Davis. Love having that backcourt still intact. Cade Tyson at the 3. I just love the size. I love the shooting. And as we just talked about, I love everything that he brings to North Carolina and how he can contribute. And oh, by the way, having a point guard like Cadeau to set him up, it's going to be incredible. So I love to see that. So that is my starting backcourt in wing 1, 2, 3. As of today, I am still of the belief that Carolina's starting 4 and 5 are not on the roster currently. And I would love to be proven wrong. I would love for, like if I had to construct a starting lineup out of the guys that are on the team right now, it would be those 3 I just talked about. And the Jalens, I would go with Jalen Withers at the 4 and Jalen Washington at the 5. I don't necessarily love that, but it is experience and it's talented guys who you want to see keep taking a step forward this next year. But that said, even as I talk about having the Jalens start at the 4 and the 5, I just don't feel comfortable with it. I'm curious if you guys do or not. I know this is wild. We're after midnight and there's so many people in right now and so many comments coming in. So you love to see it, folks. Thanks so much for diving in with me here late at night. It's super fun. I kind of love a late night show. Anybody else with me? I think it's super rad. I'm up anyway. Let's talk. But here's where we look for things right now. At the 4, I'm still all in on that being Adou Thiero. He was home in Pittsburgh this weekend. So for those who don't remember, Pittsburgh is home for Adou Thiero. For those who aren't sure about him, he is a Kentucky transfer. He's played a couple years at Kentucky, would have 2 years of eligibility to bring to North Carolina. He's got 5 schools in his finalist list, staying at Kentucky, going to Arkansas with Coach Cal, going up to Indiana, or who seem like the 2 finalists, Pittsburgh and North Carolina. So he was home in the Pittsburgh area this weekend, so visited. And, everyone gets all up in arms of like, oh man, he's following this person from Pittsburgh on Instagram and all that stuff. And it's like, I get it, but just try not to read too much into that because he's following guys at Carolina as well. And so it's just, sometimes you can read the tea leaves there. I'm not all in on the social media following tea leaves because they go both ways. But I think for me, if I'm Adou Thiero, I know going home is tempting. And I know that Pittsburgh had a better year last year and quite frankly, should have been in the NCAA tournament. I'm still in on that over Virginia. They were a better basketball team. Okay. But for Adou Thiero, I look at Carolina's lineup and I say, oh, I saw what Harrison Ingram did last year. I want to go do that. So that's what I'm thinking if I'm Adou Thiero. We'll keep waiting and watching on that one. And then at the 5, it's right now, the way things look, is it's either Cliff Omoruyi from Rutgers or Jonas Aidoo from Tennessee. There's some other thoughts and possibilities out there, but right now, those are the 2 most realistic candidates for this role. I have speculated and talked about other guys at other times. Like on Friday, we talked, for example, about Norchad Omier, whom I love from Miami that's in the transfer portal, those kind of things. And even speculating about some guys like who aren't in the portal, but like, what if they hopped in? You'd love to see it. Like Ryan Kalkbrenner from Creighton is an example of that. But with these two guys that are realistic, Jonas Aidoo, unless I've missed it, doesn't have a specific date yet scheduled for coming to Carolina. Somebody correct me in the comments if I missed that. And so somebody mentioned that for us. And then after that, Cliff Omoruyi is coming on Wednesday to start his visit, the Rutgers transfer. I legitimately am to the point now where I feel like Carolina can't go wrong with either of these guys. They both bring things that excite me more than others. I love, just like Omoruyi would be probably the best defensive player that Carolina has had in quite a while. Like Armando really stepped his game up on the defensive side of things this year. But Omoruyi, like even more so, and in a shot blocking sort of way, is going to bring that in a way that Carolina hasn't have. I'd love to talk. Maybe we need to work on getting some of Carolina's shot blockers on the show this offseason. If Omoruyi is the guy to say, what do you see in him that he can bring? But he is like, he dunks everything in sight. And so you think about pairing a guy that's been dunking everything in sight while playing at Rutgers, and now you give him Elliott, Cade, and RJ Davis to throw it up to him. I mean, come on, what are we doing? What are we talking about? So there's all of that side of things that I love and with Adou, we didn't even really go in on him, but there's so much that I love that he brings to the table as well, that I legitimately would feel really good with either of those guys. So for me, the ideal starting lineup, including wish list guys, is Cade, RJ Davis, Cade Tyson, Adou Thiero, and then either Adou or Omoruyi. I've been on record as saying that I would lean slightly toward Cliff Omoruyi, and so I'll just put him in there for that. But then you think about that and what that means for the bench. If you do get those guys in, that's two of your final three scholarships, and then I don't touch the 13th one. I leave it and don't even mess with it. And so when you look at the bench beyond that, then it's like, oh, you've got your three main bench guys from last year, Seth and the Jalen's. That was guys 6, 7, and 8 last year, and that bench is back intact. Oh, by the way, 2 5-stars joining them in Ian Jackson and Drake. I mean, come on, what are we doing? This lineup would be so incredibly stacked, and I cannot wait to see it. And so there's all of that, but I'm all in on it as a possibility. I'm looking to see if anyone has said anything about Adou and a specific visit. So there's that. I'm not seeing anything right now. So there you go. So that's where I'm at. That's what the starting lineup would look like to me if we had to roll with it today. So we'll continue to go with this as we learn more and as these visits happen. But we've been thinking so much about the transfers that I'd like to stop and remember we still don't have official word from the school or from RJ about RJ, just reputable sources. I'm ready for something stronger, but we're going to unpack that a little more. Make sure to clear up a misconception that I heard a lot this weekend on the early entry deadline and a few other things, and the transfer portal deadline coming up on Wednesday, because people have been asking me more about that. And I just want to make sure that I've made it crystal clear what that looks like. So we'll hit all of that coming up in just a second. But first, I need to tell you that this episode of Locked on Tar Heels is brought to you by our good friends at FanDuel. Hey, it's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball is in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every single game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. You can bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. You can get on there and look ahead to 2025 national championship odds. And now with Cade Tyson in the mix, I'm feeling even better about the Tar Heels. Or NBA champion. There's odds for all sorts of stuff with the NBA championships going on right now. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. This episode is also brought to you by our friends at Game Time. The weather is finally heating up, And that means it's time to go take in a Major League Baseball game. Well, great news. Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace of the MLB, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. They've got killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee. And with all of that, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. One of my favorite features of theirs is the last minute deals. Maybe you want to go take in an NBA playoff game on a whim. Well, you can save up to 60% off buying tickets for that, or concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And beyond that, I often worry about buying third-party tickets and I'll show up and it'll be like, hey, this is no good. Well, with Game Time ticket coverage, your purchase is covered by the most flexible customer service policy in the entire ticketing industry. I love that peace of mind, and I'm sure you do too. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Terms apply. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, we're going to get back here to our regular view, take off the scholarship chart. There you go. All right, here's where we're at with RJ Davis. Last week, multiple reputable sources, including CBS Sports, Field of 68, that's enough for me to go ahead and run with the news of RJ Davis's return to North Carolina. Unfortunately, as of 1 a.m. Eastern time on Monday, we don't have that word officially from the University of North Carolina or from RJ Davis. So all we can go on is that reputable reporting. Now, the same is true of Cade Tyson. Let's remember, it was a week from where the visit happened to where it sounded like everything was a go, thumbs up, to the actual commitment. So there is that with RJ as well. And a couple things with some deadlines that I want to say. I saw this pop up multiple times this weekend. I saw it actually in our Locked On Tar Heels Discord thread. I saw multiple Tar Heel reporters talking about this on Twitter. And again, just a reminder that you need to be careful. And I'm going to be wrong sometimes as well. I get that and I hear that. But let me just remind you to be very careful where you're getting your information from. An example. I saw multiple people talking about like, oh, well, Saturday at midnight is come and gone and RJ Davis didn't make an announcement. That means he's back because the early entry deadline to the NBA has come and gone. That's just not true. And here's why. That early entry deadline is only for freshmen, sophomores, and juniors. It gets confusing in this instance because of the COVID eligibility that RJ has. Typically, it's not somebody that could come back that would be in this scenario. So typically, let's think not COVID eligibility. Once a player finishes their fourth year, you're just automatically draft eligible because you're out of collegiate eligibility, right? And so you don't need to make a declaration because you can't come back to college. Think about RJ's scenario right now. He just finished his fourth year, so typically in non-COVID moments would be out of eligibility and is in the draft. But he's in this weird in-between where he can come back, but he's also draft eligible without naming it. And so a lot of people, understandably, but mistakenly say, oh, RJ Davis hasn't said he's coming back or hasn't put his name in the NBA draft. So it's too late. He can't do that. And that's just not the case. RJ Davis, because he's a senior, is automatically in the NBA draft. The announcement would not need to be, I'm in the draft. The announcement would need to be, I'm coming back. Does that make sense? If not, reach out, email lockedontarheels@gmail.com. Find me on the Locked On Tar Heels Discord or on Twitter or wherever. I'd love to work on explaining it more to you if that doesn't make sense. But I hope it does make sense because that's where it's actually at. RJ doesn't have to declare for the draft. Let me just say that definitively one more time. Now, another question I got asked a lot this weekend in particular is about the confusion on the transfer portal deadline and who is being held accountable by that and what they're being held accountable to. So let me just start by saying this. The deadline that is this Wednesday at midnight only applies to people entering the portal. You do not have to have made a decision by Wednesday. You just have to be in and have submitted your paperwork. That's it, and that's all. And then you're in and you're good. Now, what changed last week, actually a week ago today, it was confirmed, is that last offseason, for example, if you were an undergraduate transfer, you did have to be in by the transfer portal deadline. If you were a graduate transfer, you did not. You were good. And you could wait till later in the summer. By the new regulations from the NCAA, everybody, undergrads and grad transfers, have to be in the portal if they have intent to enter it anyway by this Wednesday at midnight. Now, as a reminder, you might not hear all the names by Wednesday at midnight because sometimes the paperwork takes a little longer to process. And so we'll probably get a little bit of a trickle, a little bit of a leak out of some more names on Thursday and Friday later this week. So just keep your eye on that. So just want to remind you, everyone that wants to be in the portal, undergraduate transfer or graduate transfer, has to do that by Wednesday at midnight. Also, again, RJ Davis did not have to make an NBA draft announcement by last night on Saturday night. So there's nothing really new we've learned by lack of action or lack of announcement on Saturday, specifically about RJ Davis. But again, hear me say, I feel comfortable and confident in the reporting that happened last week from CBS and Field of 68, and I will not waver on that until I get official word affirming it by North Carolina and RJ Davis or denying it from North Carolina and RJ Davis. But go with me on this. When a source as reputable as CBS comes out and says that, if it were not true, I think we'd get a firm no from RJ. Like, hey, you've heard this reported and it's just not true, because it's that level of it. So I feel comfortable with where we're at. But we do wait on the actual announcement before we go live with it at some point. So when that happens, though, we'll go live. No more trips that I'm going on. So we wait and then we'll hop on that. Very quick weekend whip around before we get out of here. Just 3 quick things I want to mention: baseball, softball, men's lacrosse. Baseball hosted Virginia Tech this weekend, won the series 2-1, almost got a sweep, won Friday 8-1, Saturday 6-3, and lost just 3-4 on Sunday. Softball was at number 16 FSU and unfortunately got swept down in Tallahassee 13-3, 11-3, and then on Sunday just 2-1. And then men's lacrosse, shout out to the Tar Heels, hosted Duke on Saturday in the regular season finale, upset the Blue Devils 15-12 at home to close the regular season. You love to see that. Congrats to those dudes. All right, y'all. It's always exciting when we get a new Tar Heel in. Cade Tyson, my friend, you are a Tar Heel. Cannot wait to see you out on the court with all the guys doing your thing. It's going to be great. Folks, want to remind you that if you haven't subscribed to the show on audio and video, it's very easy to do. Go to your favorite podcast platform on audio and just hit subscribe to the show. If you're watching on YouTube right now, hit it right now in real time. We'd love to have you as a subscriber if you're not already. Also, there's that bell notification you can see. Hit that, and it'll let you know when I go live, so that if we break in after news hits, you'll just get notified and you can just tap right on in. All right. It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel, especially today. We'll be back on Tuesday, but until then, peace.